told me their name was Vincent Jackson. I'm not sure if that's, I still don't know if that's a joke or not. Interesting. Okay. So I think it was yesterday, Vincent celebrated 31 years as a counsellor. So that's amazing. Cool.
Raised on songs and stories, heroes of renown, the passing tales and glories that once was Dublin town. The hallowed halls and houses, the haunting children's rides, that once was part of Dublin in the rare old time. My name it is Sean Dempsey, as Dublin as could be, born hard and late in Pimlico, in a house that ceased to be. By trade I was a cooper, lost out to redundancy, like my house that fell to progress, my trade's a memory. And I courted Peggy Diamond, as pretty as you please, a rogue and a child of Mary, from the rebel liberties. I lost her to a student shop, with skin as black as coal. When he took her off to Birmingham, he took away my soul. Well, the years have made me bitter, the gargled into me brain, 'cause Dublin keeps on changing and nothing stays the same. The pillar and the Metacom, the Royal long since pulled down, as the grey unyielding concrete makes the city of my town. Ring-a-ring-a-rosy, as the light declines, I remember Dublin city in the rare old times. Very well, Stitana Liffey, I can no longer stay and watch the new glass cages spring up along the quay. My mind's too full of memories, too old to hear new chimes. I'm a part of what was Dublin in the rare old times. Everybody. Ring-a-ring-a-rosy, as the light declines, I remember Dublin city in the rare old times.
Thanks, Phelan, for that. Anyway, so just before I start off, that's the last song there. My mum and dad came from the Liberties, from my mum from Merton Park, and my dad from Loretto Road. And my aunt died at the house that my dad was born in 1929. She died 5 years ago at 106 years of age, and she lived there until she was 104, until she fell. And Veronica and myself, when we were doing leaflet drops in Crumlin in the last local election, the 2014 local election, we called down to the house and I said something's wrong, because she was very frugal and the light always went off in the hall and the light was on. And we found her there, but she had 2 very happy years in Cherry Orchard Hospital, and we were only too delighted for the last 9 years of her life to look after her. And just before I start today, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for people who went before me, and I'm not talking about my mum and dad too. There's not a day goes by that I don't think that everything I have in life comes from them. All life comes from your mum and dad, whether it be good or bad. But in my instance, I know I was very, very lucky. But Marion mentioned earlier on, Marion and Jerry, Pam, Dave Conley, Mary Farrell, Tommy Phelan, all those people before me who've done so much for social justice in this community. I'm just an extension of their work, and I continue that, I hope, with the great support of my wife and my family. So my little journey here today, it's a funny story in any way, and for those of you here, Anne and Noel, particularly Anne, knew my dad very, very well, and Veronica and Marion. He was a larger-than-life figure in every shape or form. Big man, big pan as they used to call him on all the construction sites and stuff like that. And he was a great driver, wasn't he, Anne? If you were unlucky enough to be behind him in an L plate, he'd blast you off the road, and they knew him down along the shop stair, because he'd pull in front of tasty treats, go in and get his loaves of bread, block everybody and say, "Sure, I'm only going in to get me bread," but he didn't care. So this is my little journey. In 1989, on the 17th of March, St. Patrick's Day, my dad, a few weeks before that, had said what he wanted for his 60th birthday. And I had said, "What do you want, Dad?" And he said, "I'd love to go on that trip to Russia that you went a couple of years ago." So in 1986, I had gone with the class in Bolton Street College, where I studied constructive studies and carpentry and joinery. So my dad, Patrick Jackson, was a larger-than-life figure, as I said, both physically and within the presence of. He was 60 years of age, and a family of 10. We asked him what would he like for his birthday, and he responded, "I'd like to go on a trip to Russia." So we all chipped in, bought him the ticket, but he could not go on his own, so I had to go along with him because I'd already been there. We left Dublin, what I can only say looked like the oldest aircraft in the world. It was an Illusion Aeroflot aircraft, staffed by a crew who certainly never went to charm school. My dad asked if we could have the seat next to the emergency exit, as he said, "Son, we get the extra bit of leg room," and so we got the seats. The flight was full with Trinity College students and obviously lots of Irish people. And when in the flight, that we nearly died of a fright as the air conditioning came on and it was feeding a gas-like substance into the cabin of the aircraft. We were told, "Don't vary, don't vary." We had a double problem that the door seal beside the emergency exit that we were sitting at was not sealed the way it should be in an aircraft, and a thick layer of ice like you'd have in the old fridge, ice compartment formed inside the aircraft. Well, to say the least, what my dad said that day you could never repeat, and I couldn't repeat here in any way. The food on the plane was absolutely horrific. They gave us caviar, and my father, I can still remember him saying, "Take that mug back, I don't want to even look at it in front of me." The plane, 2 3/4 hours later, came to land in St. Petersburg, and as the plane descended, the thick ice that had formed over the emergency exit door, the dodgy seal, started to thaw, so much to the consternation of my dad that the staff got us blankets to stop the water droplets from soaking us wet. We got to St. Petersburg and got on the wrong bus, leaving us 20 kilometres from the hotel where we were staying, and as we had followed the Trinity College Dublin students who were staying in the very opposite part of the city, after haggling with the driver and buying some Russian medals and hats that we didn't even want, he took us to our hotel in the dark of the night. We had 3 great days travelling around St. Petersburg, seeing the sights. We were told by the official guides that we must change our dollars or sterling in the official Bureau de Change. My dad soon found out we could get 5 to 6 times the exchange rate on the black market. Everyone, and I mean everybody, was trying to barter for something. We had or thought we had. The tour guides were great, but were very cautious. The old communist system was just coming to an end, but the state watched everybody, we were told. The food was very basic, so basic that we had the thick black bread every morning and white shelled eggs for breakfast. The type of carbonated pear juice to drink. Meat was almost non-existent at meals times, and if you knew my dad, he loved his meat and veg. The first few days passed quickly, and we were travelling again on the overnight train from St. Petersburg to Moscow. 8 hours that included a sleeping compartment. There were 34 in the Irish group of the people, minus the Trinity College students who we had left in St. Petersburg. And our tour guide told us that the compartments took 4 people each. And my dad shouted out from the crowd, "We'll take the one with the 2." And And as we went, I said, Dan, I don't think we're going to be in this compartment on our own. Ah, for God's sake, we will, he says, we're the odd two out. In every way, we were in any way. So I said this to my dad, and hope that the train looks very full. I said, the train looks very full. I think strangers could be shared with us. No, not at all, he said. But I regret I was right, and we were shown to our compartment, and there, the 4 smallest beds I have ever seen in my life. After a few minutes, the 2 Russians entered our compartment. A very, very large lady, I can only say, very, very large. And our new husband, who both worked in the salami factory in St. Petersburg, were going to Moscow for their honeymoon. My dad took the bottom bunk and the lady took the other one, and we took the 2 top bunks. We tried to converse with them for a few minutes, and the lady started to undress in front of us. Oh, suffered in Jesus, says my family, get out quick, he says to me. So there we are on the speeding train in the middle of the night, freezing cold outside, heading to Moscow. After about 30 minutes, he said, I'm just too tired, I have to go back in. She was snoring, and a few minutes later he was snoring, so I just stayed up with the other people in the compartment outside along the thing, and anyway. We had a little stash of chocolate that I remembered from 1986 when I was there with the students from Bolton Street, and we shared some of this with the Russian couple, and we used it on our trip when we couldn't eat what they were giving us. Moscow, I don't know whether it's still the same now, but then it was a grim place, with the majority of buildings were the Soviet type buildings. Functionality was the order of the day, and we stayed in a huge hotel with over 3,000 bedrooms, built for the 1980 Olympics, which, as you might remember, was boycotted by the West because of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. Everything was basic: food, transport, tours, but it was great fun, and some of the most unusual people you have ever met in your life was on the trip. The shops were devoid of any real goods we wanted. However, we could buy unusual things, and I still have a few classical LPs of Shostakovich, etc. They were about 5 pence each. Couldn't believe it. You could buy maps of the world in Russian for 2 pence. Mary Queen of Angels still has a few of them down the road there. There were Russian dolls, the babushka dolls. You probably know them. You could buy them. They were everywhere. But the Russians were looking for anything at all. We had t-shirts, jeans, anything at all. They were only looking to go to. We went shopping one day to the Gum department store in Red Square, a huge store with thousands of staff. Unfortunately, even then I knew many unnecessary. You had to queue for about a half an hour to buy anything. Somebody watched it, somebody marked it, somebody wrapped it, you collected it from somebody else, and you just wanted this one good. But my dad tried to skip a very large queue. He said, I'm going to get that clock for your mother's son. I said, there's no way. Look at the size of the queue. They won't mind me, I'm a tourist. But he got into the queue at the top, and the shouts and the roars of those people was classic now. Needless to say, he wasn't on the queue for very long. He bought 3 suits that were extra large, and I just said to him, I don't think those suits will fit you. Oh, look at the size on them, of course they will. They were £8 each. And we got back to the hotel that night and he tried them on. Now, my Daniel is 10 and they hardly fit Daniel now, I have to tell you, so the sizes were very different to the West. So we brought the suits home, and he marvelled in any way at how cheap suits were and everything else, but the sizes obviously were very, very different. We travelled one night to the State Circus in Moscow, and we were told it's very difficult to get home from. So we went there, we got a taxi, and due to the numbers leaving the venue with the taxi, we wanted to make sure we could get home. The taxi driver say the price was 20 rubles, £2 in our money, and £2 sterling in those days, I should say. But my dad said, if you bring us home afterwards, we'll give you £20, 200 rubles. This ensured we could get back to our hotel. And when the venue was over, there were thousands of people coming out. We could just hear this man shouting and screaming for us to get us £20 and to bring us back in his Lada taxi. The trip ended all too soon, but upon returning to Ireland, my dad, who worked at Newry at the time, exchanged the 3 suits, and any time Veronica and myself and our kids are up in Newry, I do always say, there's that Lewis Boyd shop there, the men's shop, you probably know it for Market Street in Newry. He changed the 3 suits for £100 sterling and 3 Peter England shorts. And when he came home the following week, he said to me, Jesus son, if you had a van loads of them, you could have made a fortune. My dad loved travelling, and following my mother's passing in 1999, I took him to many places: Italy, Spain, USA. There was never a dull moment with my dad. Ask anyone who knew him or any of my family. My dad retired from work in 2005 from Park West at the age of 77. Clark works in the general foreman. He was so proud of his children, so proud of Ballyfermot, and icing on the cake was when Veronica and myself became Lord Mayor of the Lake of Dublin in 2006. He was so delighted to have this Zachary he used to get when you were in the mansion house. And as Veronica often says, he used to hold his finger on the bell of the house and he'd say, "I didn't think you heard me." And the staff said, "Oh, we did, Mr. Jackson. We were just coming up to enter the door." You know? And the highlight during that year, as somebody who was an ardent Republican, he said he had no interest in any of those trappings and all, and because Veronica's mum and dad were coming to open the horse show, the night beforehand I phoned him and I said, "Are you sure now you don't want to come in the coach?" And he changed his mind. And the staff told me in the mansion house, "I don't know whether the fiveys will fit in it." "Oh, we'll fit in it all right, I can assure you, because he's coming whatever happens." And anyway, we took him on holidays to Spain in 2009, and while we were there he complained he was finding it hard to swallow, and upon our return, Dr. O'Sullivan on Lafania Road, he went to and he was referred to James's Hospital. I got a call to go down to St. James's Hospital as was my dad's next to kin, and upon arrival, Veronica had just come from where she worked in the city centre on the Lewis. I knew something was wrong. The consultant told me he was sure it was stomach cancer and he would have to do tests, and this was confirmed. And despite the best treatment ever, I can honestly say, St. James's Hospital, the oncology, he left us 2 years later on the 9th of May 2011. His only fear of death, as he said, the moment he was told he had cancer, "Will I feel pain?" And they assured him he wouldn't, and he didn't. He left his beloved home on Drumfin Avenue on the 8th of May, passing away the following day on the 9th in Our Lady's Hospice. He loved the horse racing, as anyone that knows him, loved them in every shape and capacity, and he said to me on the Saturday morning, when the two girls out of paddy cars come up to the house and were crying when they seen his condition, and I thought it was lovely. The lad who cut the hair, he come up, he cut his hair, and he said to my sister Roisin, "I want you to go up and get me a pair of black shoes." And she says, "Dad, you have loads of shoes, but I want a new pair of black shoes," he says, "and I want you to put me in those." So there he was, as he said, making his final journey. As he said to me, "God's son, I only hope there's horse racing in heaven. If there's not, I'm going to be very bored," he said. I assured him there would be lots to see and do, particularly meeting my late man. In closing, just to say that just 4 weeks before my dad died, he was insistent on buying a new car for me, and I didn't want the car, but he said, "I'm going to buy a one son." So he went up to Cloney and he bought the smallest car, which we gave to my niece after he died, because it was too small, but his license was up. And he went, said, "You'll have to go to Specsavers to get the eye test and everything else and get new glasses." So he came back giving out hell that the glasses were €390. And I says, "What did you buy, Dad?" He says, "I don't know," he says, "but that's what they charged me." So the following week, he went to collect the glasses, and he brought the form to get your license extended, to get the license. And the lady in Vision Express in the square, he'd gone to the wrong optician that I told him to go to, said to him, "I don't know, Mr. Jackson, whether I can sign that letter for you." "Well, I can tell you now, love," he says, "if you don't sign that, I won't tell you what you can do with them glasses for €390. Upon she stamped the form, and he got his new driving license in any way. And he left us, as I said, on that awesome journey we'll all make one day. And I left the new Hugo glasses in his pocket and his new passport, because he loved travelling. And in closing, I just want to say one thing. Father Seamus, the former parish priest of St. Matthew's Church, once said to me, "Those we love only die when we stop talking about them." Just think of that for a moment. Those we lose will never die if we speak about them fondly. And this is part of our festival here in Ballyfermot. I want to thank Mary, Jerry, Janice, everybody, the whole team here, and obviously my colleagues in Dublin City Council, Miriam and Vicky. Huge amount of work, lots of volunteers right across the board, but it's all made worthwhile when people like yourself turn out. So thank you very much, David. God bless you.